Okay, in this video series here, we're going to go over the SideTone. I have three different keyers with audio output. I have a K1EL, I have a Logic keyer, K1, and I have an Ultra Pico keyer Plus that has an audio output. The one that we see right here is the natural state of the audio coming out of the K1EL. Now it's going through a 1K to 8 ohm audio transformer, and we're isolating the input from the output. And the 8 ohm side is going into the mic jack through a couple of caps. I have a stereo mic, so I have one cap to the left side and one cap to the right input of the microphone. And both of those attach to the hot lead of the transformer, and the ground lead, of course, goes to the ground of the mic cable. So this is what it sounds like on the top, or what it looks like. And on the bottom is going through a filter that we have available in KX Studio's native Lennox audio plugins. And it's a Tandem bandpass filter, and I'll show you that in a second. First I want to show you the difference between what's coming in the mic jack and what's leaving it going to the input of Mumble on the bottom here. So that's a fairly nicely shaped waveform. So let's show you what that sounds like. Let's bring up the mixer here. I'm going to turn on the before filter, and you'll be able to hear what this sounds like. It's real razzy and has a lot of key clicks. So we have two types of filters. We have a normal bandpass filter, which I have in the mixer as tone, and I have a regen that I'll show you. And the regen works with Reaper as in the previous videos, and Reaper works on Linux, Mac, and Windows. So you can always use this method. And they're very close in how they sound. It's just a matter of preference, I think. So here's what the tone sounds like after going through a bandpass filter. Okay, and now we'll turn that off and we'll turn up the regen. So this audio shape right here, this square wave, is what goes into the input of the regen, and this is what comes out of the regen. So that's recreating the Morse code element through a regeneration process. And I'll go over that in a second. So let's take a look at the live scope now. I'll leave the regen off and we'll concentrate on the filter. So we'll turn this off of pause and freeze, and I'll just send some dits. And we'll also take it into a no trigger zone. You can watch this live a little bit. Anyway, you get the idea. So let's get these out of the picture for a second. Take them over here. And here's the Jackrouter setup for Linux, and this would be similar both for Windows and for Mac, because Mac has Jack Pilot, and the Jackrouter has a jack audio that you can get on your Mac too. So here's the mic jack, and we're going to the spectrum analyzer, which I'll show in a second, that scope that you just saw. And we also have a Reaper, which is doing the regen. But here are the two bandpass filters. Let's take a look at those. Here and here. And here's my settings for the first one, since we have them in series, in tandem. So I have the first one set at 750, 2.5Q, and 2 to 3 orders of filtering. And this one's set at 650. Q is the same, and the order is the same. And that combination makes for a very nice tone. So I'm sending it to the jack mixer, which you saw before, which is right there. So the tone only controls what I hear. So I can turn that down or off, but it still goes to the Mumble input, this M-in. Since I'm also sending it to a separate channel here, M-in, and M-out, M-in out goes to the Mumble input right there. I'll go over this little trick here to get Mumble having its own presence inside Jackrouter, Jack Audio. So we have that. And this is what it sounds like. Very, very rough, and that's not really good to send to other people. Nobody wants to hear razziness and key clicks. If you don't want to filter it, you can always do it that way. And this filtering is done all in software. And let's show you what the spectrum difference looks like. There we go. So on the left is what the spectrum looks like coming in, and on the right is after it's cleaned up by the filter. So we'll send it again. And I'm not playing it right now, just viewing with the spectrum of it. So lots of stuff going on here on the left here with just the raw input. But it really cleans up nice, and it's very symmetrical, as you can see on this spectrum analyzer. It's the 3D spectrum analyzer. Okay. So now I'm going to go to my Logic Key K1 keyer. I'm going to pause the video and be right back. Okay, now we're on the Logic here, and I'm going to send some dits. And as you can see on the top, it's about a very similar square wave. And after the filter, it's a very nicely shaped sine wave oscillator on the bottom. And let's go into the spectrum, and we'll show that. You can see the last part of it. So on the left is what the K1EL, the Logic Key K1 keyer sounds like, coming right out of it. All I did was unsolder the wires to the speaker and put them to RCA jack. But the filter, again, cleans it up pretty nice. Let's take a look. Yeah, we have it on tone here, so we can take the tone up. Okay, now let's let you hear what it sounds like before the filter. So, pretty razzy. And here's the regen. And let's look at how the regen. Now we'll compare that to the filter. Pretty close. Very symmetrical. So it sounds pretty good. And you can, one thing about the regen, it's a lot easier to adjust the rise and fall time and how hard or soft you want it. With the filter, it's kind of a trade-off, but as you can hear, it sounds pretty good anyway. Alright, now I'm going to go to one last keyer, the Ultra Pico Keyer Plus, or Pico Keyer Plus. So again, I'll be right back after I get that set up. Okay, now here's the Ultra Pico Keyer Plus. It has a little bit of a different waveform. This is the filtering on the bottom and how it looks as it comes into the mic jack. So the natural output of the Ultra Pico Keyer Plus looks like this. And And then after it's filtered, it looks like that. Still, it sounds pretty good. So let's take a listen here. This is the natural tone of the after it's filtered. Let me let you hear what it sounds. It sounds pretty much, you know, like the others do. And here's what it sounds like after the filtering. And here's the regen. So a little more difference between that and the natural here. It's kind of subtle. And let's take a look at the spectrum now. On the left again is what the Ultra Pico Keyer Plus looks like without any filtering. And I've turned off the side tone, and that's after the filtering on the right. So a lot of noise there, especially at the lower end. A lot of thumping. But that really cleans it up, that filtering. And let's take a look at the mixer again. And we'll turn on the regen. And we'll see what that sounds like. Let me go over the regen real quick for anybody interested. This is only used with what comes already installed with Reaper when you install it. The regate sets the trigger, and that's just the settings. There may be other settings that work well. The filter kind of keeps the anything below or above from affecting the threshold. The threshold is the secret to getting a good keen. And the MIDI note 77, which is around 700 hertz, tells Resynth how to send it. So here's the only thing I have adjusted is the rise and fall time. So we'll take it down to 3 and see what that sounds like. We're going through a 12-pole filter that also comes with Reaper. I'm using 36 dB an octave and a 6-pole low pass and high pass filter set at 500 and 1K. And let's do Resynth with 2. And for just a little harder keen, that sounds pretty good. And here's what it sounds like without the filter. Put the filter back in. And let's take it all the way up on the poles and see what that sounds like. Steeper sides on. Take it off again. So you can custom create a pretty nice, to your own preference, CW SideTone for getting it into the Mumble Input using Jackrouter. Let's go over Jackrouter a little bit. Take these off. Again, the system is the mic jack, and I'm just using these apps to analyze what the original tone looks like. The 2 bandpass filters look like this, and we'll see if that GUI can come up. There it is. And that's just a fancy GUI for what we did before, where we just looked at the settings inside here with the wrench. So I just have, again, everything set the same except the frequency, the center frequency, which I have one at 750, and and one at 650. And in Tandem they do a better job than just one by itself. So we go through the first one at 750, the other one at 650, and it goes to Jack Mixer. Jack Mixer allows me to adjust how loud I want the side tones for my own monitoring, and this helps set just the right amount to go to the Mumble input. This one adjusts so I can control how much volume I hear from the rest of the people on Mumble, the Mumble output. And this is just for my microphone, which you could also use on Mumble. And that's just how much mic I want to hear, and as it goes to my speaker so I can see what my voice is sounding like, and if I wanted to the input of Mumble, so I could take the mic out, draw a line over to the input of Mumble here. Let's go over this command. It's part of the Lennox Jackrouter. On Windows and Mac it may or may not work as well, but this is a good demonstration on, I'm using Ubuntu 14.04 here, 64-bit. And the command is very easy. I've already set up a script and saved it. Here's a jack load, which is the way you do this. And I have multiple loopback, which are Lennox's version of virtual audio cables. And these come already installed. You just have to load them, or automatically load them every time you boot. But it's jack_load mumble, whatever you want to call this cable. And it's the audio adapter is the command, and here's an instruction string telling it to use hardware 3, which is a loopback cable 3. And this is the ring buffer. That works pretty good on my laptop. I have an i7 quad core, and I'm telling it just to use one channel, one input, and one output. So 0i1 -01, the letter O. And sample rate on my system is 48K, and I tell it what sample rate to do. And once you load that up, you get that coming into Carla right here. That's what it looks like. So you have an input and an output, which allows you to route Mumble, whatever you want to send to the Mumble input, and if you wanted to apply some plugins after it, or just go right to the sound card. And on Mumble, this is the only, or one of the few things that worked using the plug HW. Again, I'm using Loopback 3.1 for both. Loopback 3.1, and as you can see, lots of combinations. And I think I have 5 loopback cables. So if you went to your etc. modules, you wanted more than one loopback. Let's see if we can. I'm going to set my mic down for a second and see if I can get to that. Okay, here's the modules and etc. And you have to reboot for this to take, and you have to do this as root. So you have to do sudo gedit and then open this file. And I have sound to loop. If you just have that, you'll just get one cable. If you put this afterward, enable equals however many cables you want. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. That gives me 5 loopback cables. I'm going to do a ALSA commands. So stand by 1. We'll put the mic down. And they all show up here. So we have loopback 1, loopback 2, they call them card 0, card 1, card 2, loopback 3, And that's the one that I'm using for Mumble Input. I just use that for no particular reason. And we have 4. Since it starts at 0 card, 4 is actually loopback 5, so to speak, as far as math goes. And this is my Behringer line in. I have another USB sound card attached to here. So that's all I did. This command here allows you to have MIDI showing up in Carla. Right there. Gives you 16 channels of MIDI in and MIDI out. For those MIDI artists. And MIDI is what's being used in Reaper to do that regeneration. Since Regate says send MIDI note 77 to resynth plays it. And let's show you another advantage here. You can change the pitch of this. So let's turn the regens on. Okay. So let's change the pitch. Tuning. Take it down. And we can take it up. And you'll have to retune the filter so that you kind of get that bandpass right in there symmetrically. So that's kind of neat. It's one way to control your side tone without having to reach for your keyers controls and trying to do it that way. Okay, I think I've covered pretty much everything I was hoping to with the side tone. The idea is to analyze your own input side tone so that you're happy with it, and so is everybody else on Mumble that's listening to you. So again, thank you for watching, and thank you for your interest in Internet Morse and ICW.